Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am Yoshi Lan, and I'm going to be talking about beliefs. Yes, more beliefs. But this one's going to be different from the last video. As I mentioned in the last video, or the first video, about beliefs being two different kinds of things. So, the first type of belief that I mentioned is the mindset. Okay, because there's really no such thing as a belief. A belief is a type of spiritual energy, mental energy, emotional energy that has stagnated and become rigid over time. And that's something that you dissolve or unravel. And there's different methods of doing this. So for this video, I'm going to be talking about the second type of beliefs, the really, really difficult one to work with, the one that causes people to self-sabotage. And this is called a soul fractal. Soul fractals occur when we go through moments in our life where we get really hurt or really angry, or something happens and we become extremely emotional, extremely energetic. And we make something called a declaration. Okay, when you make this declaration, you actually dislodge a part of yourself. That's how powerful it is. That energy is so strong, you actually split off from yourself. So, because we're spiritual beings and we're infinite in nature, if a portion of us splits off and gets dislodged over time, that part of ourselves isn't just a piece of us, it is a whole us. If you understand what a fractal is, it's a smaller version, but an entirely complete duplicate of ourselves. Even though it's just a fraction of our energy, it is still part of us. It is still a whole us that has now become separate from us. So this part of ourselves that gets dislodged over time has a declaration, has a particular belief, expectation, as well as assumption based on a particular situation that happened. And if you don't work on soul retrieval or soul convergence, or whatever you want to call it, then this part of yourself stays stuck in the past. And this is why people are not able to move on. They have created declarations. Even if they've evolved so much in their spiritual work, if they do not do this type of healing work, this soul retrieval, soul convergence, soul integration, if you don't do this type of healing work for yourself, there's going to be parts of you that will still get triggered. And no matter how sunshines and rainbows you are, this part of yourself will continue seething and burning until it explodes. And then it will just take over. You won't know what happened. And this is where that spiritual stereotype comes in, actually. The spiritual stereotype, like, everything is just fantastic. All you have to do is just transcend everything and everything will be just fine. And then snap. Angry Birds. The first Angry Birds movie had that stereotype where Matilda was in her Zen state, pretending to be in her Zen state, because she's not really doing the inner healing work, the shadow work, the soul retrieval. And when you don't do this, that part just comes out of nowhere because that person has blinded themselves of all those energies. They just want to focus on the sunshines and rainbows and not realize that there's a part of themselves that is still dislodged in time, still thinking that these things are offensive or these things are endangering them. When that happens, all hell breaks loose because that person has just regressed. And if this happened when you were a child, a lot of it is when you were a child actually, then what happens? You may have noticed that when people go into these temper tantrums, like really epic, explosive temper tantrums, it's like they're a child. Like they're ridiculously retarded. Like, how are you a grown adult, 30, 40, 50 years old, 60, 70, and then all of a sudden they're acting like a teenager or a tween or an 8-year-old? If you're lucky, you end up acting like an 8-year-old. And then for other people, guess what? They end up acting like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. And that's because these are parts of themselves that they neglected that still have reign over their life. And if you ignore those parts of yourself, they will come to bite you in the ass really, really hard. And this is what happens when you don't align with yourself and do that type of healing work. So this is also to encourage you, if this has happened to you before and you've been doing your healing work, or you haven't been doing your healing work, you've just been doing all the other fun spiritual stuff, all the fun sunshines and rainbow stuff, like talking with people and talking to crystals and walking in nature, but you haven't actually been doing the inner healing work, connecting with yourself, the true spiritual practices. Yeah, there's going to be a time where karmic energies will come to bite you in the ass. And those karmic energies are led by you. So it's all up to you. Now, it is possible to work through these things, and oftentimes it's very difficult because it's usually highly emotionally turbulent. A lot in psychology, this would be termed as a PTSD. That's how extreme it is. If somebody is diagnosed with PTSD, 100%, you bet there's a part of their soul that's been dislodged over time. Probably a big chunk of their soul has been dislodged. For it to be to the point of PTSD, that's a big chunk of a person's soul. Smaller chunks, that's something that people are able to ignore and be able to function in life until it comes rearing its very angry, vehemently explosive anger, hatred, all of this stuff. So once you work with this stuff, triggers won't really affect you in the same way, because these parts of ourselves that are dislodged over time, as I said in the earlier part of this video, they have very, very harsh beliefs, very harsh viewpoints, right? Very harsh mindset. They have a very harsh way of dealing with things, of looking at things. So when you have those types of things, you have expectations and you have assumptions. If you have very unreasonable or very harsh expectations and assumptions, that goes back to a part of your past that has been very traumatic, for sure. And it's something that you don't have to carry with you. It's your choice that you're carrying all of this stuff. But if you don't want to carry it anymore, if it's affecting your life and your relationships, and you want to really turn a new leaf and transform yourself, then this is the path for you. It's called shadow work. It involves diving deep, emotional healing, as well as soul retrieval. Okay, because just the emotional part isn't enough. That's gonna fuck a person up. That's why a lot of veterans, they get really screwed up because psychology is very shallow. All it does is it provokes them, and then it brings up all of these painful memories and emotions and hurt, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to feel it. They don't know how to embrace it. They don't know how to become wise from it. They don't know how to learn from it. It's just, oh, okay, you've felt your stuff again. You found it. Okay, good. All right, we'll see you again next week. That really screws up a person because that's really tormented stuff that they went through. Okay, that's their mindset. That's how they perceived it. That's how they experienced it. And if you just stir it all up and then don't do anything with it, then yeah, it's just like you're stabbing somebody and twisting a knife and then going, all right, well, that was a great session. You can come back next week and hopefully we'll make some more progress. Like, hell's no, you're not going to make progress like that. You're just stabbing them every single week and then turning the knife for a whole hour. So psychology, extremely shallow, superficial stuff. But there is hope because one of my friends found a therapist who does psychological emotional healing work. So the psychologist doesn't just stab the person so that they can feel their emotions again, but she actually walks them through it and find out what's happening during that time, really dive deep into it and really give space for that emotion to emerge so that you can learn from it and examine it better. That's more the true process. It's not quite there yet, but it's very spiritual. And I'm very impressed that psychology is moving down this path because psychology's been going through a huge circle before. Oh, actually, you know what? Freud and Jung. Yeah, Freud and Jung. They've got some pretty spot on stuff. It only took what, like 50 years for them to do that? But Freud and Carl Jung, they've been on this since the beginning. A lot of the shit that people carry with them through their life is from their childhood. Okay? And that's because these are where a lot of the soul fractals are, the bigger soul fractals. All right. So that pretty much explains the second type of belief. If you have any more questions about it, you're welcome to put it down in the comments and we can talk about more about how this happens or the healing process that's involved. But yeah, it's a very serious thing. And I spent well over a year doing this type of work on myself, working with my former spiritual mentor to do deep diving and learning how to do all this stuff. And I was very curious, like, what is it exactly? Because even though I processed my emotions and all this other stuff, I was still getting really triggered about very trivial things or things that I thought I processed. And it's because the processing wasn't deep enough. It wasn't deep enough, it wasn't far enough, and it also didn't address the most integral portion of it, which is the soul convergence or the soul retrieval. When you bring that part of yourself that you have dislodged over time, and it is a choice. That's why I'm saying you dislodged it. Just like I dislodged parts of myself. You also dislodged parts of yourself. And you don't actually have to have this process as we go throughout our life. Some people will just automatically find a way to do their own soul retrieval. Like those really eureka moments, like, oh, just puts perspective on stuff that happened in your past. That's actually an act of soul retrieval. There's still some spiritual work to do there, but a lot of the stuff has been addressed because you've reached a new level of perspective. And then once you start doing the spiritual work, then that completes the rest of it. And after that, it's karmic resolution, which is basically like your get out of jail free card. Karmic resolution. Most of it is very common and very trivial stuff because it's just it's a rite of passage, right? It's a way of telling the universe, like, oh, I see this. I see where this is going. I'm not going to choose that because this is now. This is not a reflection of the past. So I'm not going to have those expectations. I'm not going to have those assumptions. That's bygone. So let's let bygones be bygones. And then I will make a choice based on the now. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Let's see. I'd appreciate if you supported my channel by subscribing to my channel or sharing my videos, as well as just interacting. If you have any comments or questions, or if you have experiences that you'd like to share about the inner healing work that you've done, you're welcome to share that. Each person has their own journey, and inner healing work is a very beautiful process. But if you don't have somebody who can properly guide you or knows all of the tools that are part of the process of healing yourself, it can be very scary and it can be very painful. So I'll see you guys next time. Namaskara. Have a great day. Bye-bye.